Hey, did you know I stream on Twitch? That's crazy. Wow, you should follow me. You can ban cards from my deck and make my life hell just by following. Why are you doing this to me? So come on down and follow me on Twitch. Hello. We're on to something a little different from my usual content, but if you've been a fan of the channel for a bit longer than the past couple of months, you might be aware that I'm quite the aficionado for N and R format in Master Duel. I'm trying to support a lot of alternative formats right now, and NR is one of my personal favorites. So I thought I'd make a video to sort of get back into the trend of making content for N and R format, because it is still very alive and well, and there is quite a decent community for it with some relatively small events, but if we can maybe push it a bit, we can make the format quite popular again. And it's a very interesting one with a lot of cool decks as we're about to go through, as I'm going to give a quick summary of how the meta currently is. Now, we do have in our little version of the format, there's no like strict one version like Konami's list, and honestly Konami's ban list for the format was pretty shoddy. So ever since it started, we've had our own little format where we have our own ban list to sort of regulate things. And you'll see there's some things that are significantly more hidden there than others. So I'll do a quick run over the ban list, and then we're going to look at the tiers of what the current best decks are in that format, and sort of go run through of how they work, how they play, and the sort of key cards they have, as well as little cool engines that we play in the format that didn't really see play in the TCG, or in Master Duel at large. So we'll quick run through the ban list, and we'll explain them a bit more as we get through them. Maybe it's quite a lot to go into detail, so maybe I'll cover that more another time, but we're just doing a quick run through here to see exactly what it is that each deck is missing and what we did to balance them. So we have a Raw Paragon band, that's just a generic Brigade kit, World Legacy World Shield, Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, 2 Megalith Ritual Monsters, we have Dimensional Fissure, Fire Prison, Majesty's Pegasus, the Magispector Field Spell, Megalith Portal, Parametal Foes Fusion, Summoning Curse, Metal Foes Counter, and the Monarchs Erupt. In Limited, we have FA Hang On Mark, that is the Macrocosmos FA. We have Melfi Caddy, we have Metal Foes Mithrilium. This was banned, but recently came back to one when we banned Parametal Foes Fusion. Prankhead's Weather Washer, Magispector Tempest, and Metal Foes Combination. In the Simulated, we have Baobaboon, Ignis Heat, Mad Hacker, Bunbuku, Megalithophiel, Summoner's Art, Magispector Tornado, True Draco Apocalypse, which just came back a bit from the hits to Metal Foes, and we recently unhit to 3 Torrential Tribute and Speedroid Marble Machine. Torrential Tribute is a very, very controversial card that we will go into detail later in this video. So before we get directly into the tier list, I will just remind you that this format is still live and playing, and over in the NR Discord, which I will link in the description, where you can access this spreadsheet, which gives a great lot of detail on the format, a lot of example decks and stuff. We're going through a bit of an overhaul and maybe re-updating a lot of them in a minute. It's been a bit slow recently, but things are hopefully picking up, and I'm going to make a bit more content for NR format as time goes on. So in which case, you should remember to subscribe here if you want to see more NR content, as well as some of the other series, like the custom cards. So first off, we have Marincess. Now, Marincess is a link combo deck, as you may know from regular ladder. It's just making a bunch of links. It focuses, well, of course, with water monsters with a bit of a stall strategy rather than its usual explosive ending on stuff like Argonaut, as we of course don't have a lot of those big links. But we do still have stuff like Marincess Wave, which you can still loop every turn. So you have some very powerful tools there. You have Marbled Rock as your main link that you're ending on, with the unaffected protection from Battle Ocean. So it's a pretty difficult thing to get over if you can establish it. Unfortunately, it just is not as consistent or as high-powered as the other top decks, but it still makes its way in a low tier with some pretty powerful additional engines like Sharks. Paleo Spiral, a deck that's been pretty popular since the format started, honestly, starting with the Paleo cards and the Umi support, as well as, of course, the Paleozoics, as we have a lot of them, including Dynamicious is in this format. We pretty much have all of the traps, so you can make a pretty big pool of Paleo cards alone, which was one of the first things people really realized NR had. So, with Thuffle DDD, it is a bit of a weird deck that's, again, been around a while. But honestly, it's rather untested at the minute. DDD got some new cards recently, like Headhunt, which are obviously very strong, but we haven't seen many people actually pick up the deck and play it, so hey, maybe you can be the person that gives us a bit more info on it. Adding Nista and Code Talker, or Cyber's Pile, or AI Ball. It's kind of a worse combo build than some other that's up higher on the list that we'll get to in a second. It's fully dedicated to the OTKs with stuff like Shooting Code Talker, Encode as well. We're attempting to essentially murder the opponent as soon as possible. We have access to some of the more ritual and fusion stuff. Gadget Raider, another deck that's been popular since the format's inception, partly due to Dire and her obsession with making Generator good. It took a long time to get her agreed that the deck was not high tier. It's basically a sort of mid-range Earth Machine list using Boss Stage and a few other things, additionally making rank 4s and rank 8s with gadget cards, and usually you're going to be going into Juglubion, which we've been banned a couple months ago, into Heart Earth Dragon, which can be a very, very difficult thing to get over, especially for weaker decks. You also have access to the Numbers Protection counter trap, which is searchable through Astraltopia, which is just an Omni-Negate and is very powerful. Last up in the road here we have Pure Dragon Maid. It's just essentially a mill deck that loops Parlor, Nurse, and Laundry, sending your important stables to the grave while keeping up your hand advantage for traps like Dynamicious and Phoenix Wing Windblast. You're going to be making use of stuff like Tidying, which we do indeed have, and it's very nice to have that free bounce. And first up in Tier 3, the sort of lower power level but can still top a reasonable amount, we have my pet deck of the format, Dino Mist. This is a very cool deck that, like Megalith, has access to most of its powerful tools. We have access to Dino Mist Charge. The only things we're really missing are Howling and Rex, which are pretty significant losses, but we do have really powerful stuff here. We of course have Charge, which is an insane card for both recursion and your initial plays. You don't really have any way to search this, which is why we play Watchcat, which is a bit of a slow tool, which is why this is a bit less able to turbo out than the better end decks in the format, but it's still a very powerful tool to just directly search Watchcat for your follow-up turn, and you have so many easily accessible pendulums that it's pretty easy to build without Charge, but you do absolutely want to turbo into it as soon as possible, which is why we're on stuff like Reload. We are playing Clock Arc, which is a really powerful thing that just enables us to have either scale that we need if we're missing something, and it can sometimes pop a card, but that's not that likely. We're obviously playing MST and Dynamicious and Torrential as our key staples of the format. Next up we have Earth Machine, a classic little rogue deck from the TCG, and one that is a bit of a favorite here, moving on from Gadget Raider to something a bit more capable and less janky. This is focusing very much on making some powerful XZ plays, utilizing Infinitrax, combo and level management, gadgets to just turbo out rank 4s, and some more machines that just enable your combos. Pretty typical Earth Machine plays, honestly. You're just playing stuff like the gadgets to compensate for missing out on some of the higher rarity cards like the Machinas that you would normally be playing in Earth Machine. You've still got Goliath, which is very, very influential, and you of course are going likely into Juglubion to get into Heart Earth and such. And you also have the big spiders, Tarantula, 7 Sins, and Pain Gainer. And then you got a couple of other options like Castrum, which is pretty good, and some rank 4s, usually ones of your choice, but a Sophiel is most popular right now as it's just bouncing any card your opponent controls to the hand, but there's still plenty of other options you have. And next up we have Lunalight Tri-Brigade. Now this is a bit of an interesting one. It's kind of like a later list we're going to show, but instead of going first, as some other tri-builds do, you're going second. You're hoping to work with the links to go into stuff like Cat Dancer, and the tri-cards and Lunalights do work quite well to get an OTK going. You might be noticing there's a bit of trend here that while OTK decks are fine, they tend to be more lower tier than high tier, as we don't really have access to the going second staples that you do in TCG like Lightning Storm and Raigeki. In fact, we have more going first power cards like Torrential Tribute to stop our opponents from OTKing us. Next up we have Crawler, a flip control deck I'm sure you're all painfully familiar with from a certain DZeef series. And it's pretty painful here too. We possess Deus Ex Crawler, an insane card that should not be legal but somehow is, and a lot of powerful floating and mill effects as well as recursion. We have the Ting Dangler reigning in here, using Drelf and other monsters in a constantly shifting and changing list that will leave you guessing what you're going to see when you hit into that set card. Unless you summon Triple Burst, which is a pretty popular thing right now and negates in the damage stab. Now I know what you're thinking. This isn't Sword Soul Tenny, where's the Moyis, where's the Long Guns? Well, you got Taiyang. Cry about it. Even with Long One, the problem is we just don't have any level 10 synchros to go into. So you're just pretty much going all in on the low level synchros, which in this case is Enlightenment Paladin, which is Flame Wingman, and Psy-Frame Lord Zeta if you can somehow make it, which is a pretty good removal tool. Otherwise you're turboing into stuff like Monk of the Tenny and Berserker of the Tenny. And then we of course have all the power cards here. We have Dragon Circle, Summit, Flawless Perfection, we have Fists, we have Vishuda, which, God, I guarantee this card will be banned from this format someday. This card is devastating. It is absolutely one of the reasons that Tenny has been meta-relevant through the entirety of NR format. This is an insane card that I cannot believe is available to us just out of the gate in NR. Same with Ashuna. These two are a powerful, powerful combination that is definitely what enables this deck to do so much. Alright, next up we've got one of my favorite new additions to the meta, which is Unchained Labyrinth. Labyrinth has of course not been really making waves in Master Duel at large, as Runic has been the death to beat in terms of those cards, but this is a very powerful set of cards that we got in NR, particularly with a Labyrinth Archfiend. This is a devastating tool for trap decks. Of course, the most important thing, it's summon from hand effect to set one from deck, and there's a little neat combo here that's fairly simple and very generic and has been tested out in a lot of decks and is played in a lot of the sort of lower strength things, but is definitely tried in some other interesting decks as well. The usual line you're probably going to be going down here is you bring back one of your twins, summon out Archfiend. Your opponent now has trouble getting over it because its attack's so high, it's the only thing they can attack, but if they do have something big enough, you flip Fair Welcome that you've just surged, and then you negate the attack, you pop one of your own Unchains to trigger its effect in the graveyard, and you can grab something like Torrential Tribute directly from your deck. And Torrential has been very controversial. Some people want it banned, some want it limited, some want it at 3, but this definitely makes it even stronger than it already was by being searchable, and makes a lot of people want to run this engine, and makes this deck by itself very, very powerful. So other than that, we're playing stuff like Archfiend Cavalry, as this, when it's destroyed by a card effect, can just bring back the Labyrinth Archfiend, which then, because it's special summoned, can set another Fair Welcome Labyrinth from deck. Next up we have Ballpark, which is complicated. It's a beatdown deck, dedicated to using literally anything to throw your opponent. You're going to be playing Tenny, Striker, Battle Wasp, B-Troopers, Kaijus. It's kind of just a kitchen sink engine for insects that's more than capable of swinging game at random. It's hard to define, but its main goal is creating pressure on the opponent during both their turn and the opponent's, waiting and pushing for them to buckle. You have Goki Pole as a very notable thing legal here. Moving over to tier 2, we're going to see some things up in the next couple tiers where we combine some of the better decks into one, starting off here with Dragon-made Tenny, combining the best of both worlds of those two decks, and that's enough to make it good. A deck that's origin was spinning a wheel of random archetypes twice, and it turns out to be very powerful by pure coincidence. Turns out if you mill cards and you mill a bunch of Tennys, that's a pretty good result. So you're just taking advantage of the best of both worlds here. You're basically building advantage with cards like Laundry and Perfection as you grind out your opponent with big bodies and powerful impact cards like Vishuda and Dynamicious and Fists. It's pretty difficult to deal with, and as well, you do have access to a little fun tech here with the Fist's Grave effect that if it gets destroyed, you can bring out Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon that we do have legal here, which is a very funny little choice. A rather unexpected tier to see all the way up here, but Flower Cardian is very strong. Turns out they just have most of their cards. And that's all you really need is a full deck of 40 Cardians to spam out and kill your opponent. It is the pure essence of OTK. Draw, 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 pop, pop, pop. Put boards up. Just keep filling the board until lethal is guaranteed. Kill, murder, summon, special, kill, kill, kill. I don't know what any of these cards do. I don't know what their combo lines are. I don't know what any of these things say. But god, is it terrifying when you see one revealed in the hand. Moving on to one of the terrors of the format that's always been good, we're on the first Metal Foes spot on the tier list. That's right, I said first spot. Metal Foes has been always one of the top decks in the format, which is why we've had to hit it so many times, and it just keeps coming back. We've banned multiple cards from this deck, limited multiple. There's generic cards that have been limited and semi-limited and on and off because of this deck, and it's still kicking. This is Draco Foes, of course. We're playing pretty much the maximum number of all the Dracos that we can, with 2 Apocalypse and 3 Majesty and 2 Ignis, 2 Balbaboon. We're playing the Unchained package because they're just really strong for popping stuff, and then we're just playing max of every Metal Foes card we have, as well as some stuff in the extra, like Mithrilium, which is only limited to 1, but this is insane at multiples, I can tell you. It's really something. This is basically your slower version of Metal Foes. You're not quite mid-range or control, but less combo than the other version. This is, I think, a very healthy place for the deck to be at. This deck is. Next up, a deck you never ever heard of, never existed in the TCG, because this is an invention purely in this format. You will never see it anywhere else, and it is so based. It is Chad Turbo, otherwise known as Level 5 Warriors. We are playing the Star Warriors as our most notable cards here, and most recently we got Kaiser the Hidden Star, which has been a huge improvement for this deck. What you're doing here is just turboing into Level 5 Warriors, Rank 5 Xyz, and then fusioning off into Editen the Conquering Star, which on summon searches any monster in your deck. We can also buff it up, and it can battle into basically anything and win any battle to do a huge amount of damage. You can sometimes go into Shura the Combat Star, which is a bit less useful because it does itself have 0 attack, but when it is destroyed it brings back Editen as a fusion summon, so you get another surge. So there's not much to it. This is so cool, so based. If you want to play big guys spamming out with stuff like Beast of the Wild, which you've put in grave with stuff like Lightning Vortex, summoning Joker's Knight from hand and Foolishing Jack's Knight, then summoning it back with Beast of the Wild, going into Volcasaurus, Dvorak, all these things, and just spam for big damage, this is the deck for you. And last up in Tier 2, we have another mainstay of the format, Megalith or Ritual Pile. This is a more tame build of it, sticking to 40 cards just to give you a basic idea. Megalith is combo. It is the first major combo deck you're going to see here, really. You're going into Lord of the Red, notably as just a 2-pop card that had to be hid because it was so easy to go into and is not a hard one per turn. You have access to powerhouses like Natasha and Balag for your OTKs. You can summon anything from the deck. And then formed, you have 3 different normal summon searches, and you have all the incantations and their ritual cards. And you have access to a wide array of rank 4s, but mostly you're just going to be hitting for big amounts of Phalag and popping a bunch of cards with Lord of the Red. It's basically Megalith, but weak enough to not be tier 0. Moving into tier 1, what do we have first? What is the first Uber deck in this format? What weird, unplayable TCG deck that has never seen the light of day forming high with here in NR? That's right, it's the little-known deck Orchest, with 3 Heart Horror and 3 of everything else. We are just going hard into Orchest. What's that you say? We don't have any of the links, any of the Xyz? What do you mean? We have Orchestrion. This link card cannot be destroyed, and it can settle your opponent's monsters that are linked to 0 and negate their effects. And it points to 2 of them by default anyway. Very powerful effect. You can turbo into Dark Armed for 3 free pops. You have World Wand, you have Orcus Nightmare, you have Mothman, you have Deus Ex Crawler, which you can go into using stuff like World Legacy Survivor, which gets you all of your World Legacies. You have Secret, you have Mind Meld, you have Orchestrated Return, you have Skeleton and Bombard. And a really cool little tech we have here is Giltia the Dark Knight Soul Spear, which can summon itself, and you can discard a card to search a level 6 Dark Machine, which it just so happens that World Legacy World Crown is. This deck is so sick. This is not at all what you'd expect Orcus to be in any other format. You are using all of your graveyard recursion to build a mill strategy. You are milling as much as you can to murder the fucking shit out of your opponent. This deck is so sick. If you love Orchest, you will love Orchest in NR. Next up in the tier 1, we have our first tier 1 Pendulum strategy, and the main thing you're going to if you want to play a pen deck that is not Metal Foes, and that is Fast Magic or Speedroid Magispector. That's right, Magispector and Speedroid actually work together really well to make a powerful deck capable of setting up multiple interruptions, and that's why they've been hit multiple times in terms of consistency and in terms of just the number of interruptions they have, with Tempest and Tornado being very powerful and difficult to deal with. We have, of course, Clock Arc here, as you saw in Dynamist, and we have access to Marble Machine. We have access to all of the Magispector main decks, except obviously Kirin. We have Darkworm and Supreme King Gate 0. We have Omega Judgment, a really cool card that pops a card in your back row and 2 cards your opponent controls. We have an Icarus for pens, essentially. Very cool thing we have. You can go into stuff like a Nirvana High Paladin, Stardust Charge, Zeta, and Odd Eyes Meteor Burst. And you have a bunch of links you can go into as well, such as Phrasevelga, which usually you can probably actually get that 4800 attack, and is a very good effect against stuff like Orchest. And something that's so helpful for Magispectors is that line on all of them that they cannot be targeted or destroyed. It is so difficult to stop these guys from filling up and to stop them from staying around. Torrential Tribute is the main trap card staple of the format, and these guys do not care about it. They will keep playing through it. They will keep playing through a lot, and you have to be wary and figure out how you're going to out them when your main thing is Torrential. Now, I mentioned there's a Cyburst deck high up in the tiers, and it is Salomam Great, but I'm sure you have no idea what this list is. But I assure you, it is Salomam Great, combo deck breaking down the toughest of boards with your Code Talker link monsters, such as Shooting Code, Talk Maglancer, Flame Administrator, you got Enko Talker, Elfant, and Update Jammer. We have, of course, the Triple Burst Dragon showing its face. We have Cyburst Reminder, which searches Cyburst spells and traps. And we have, of course, the rank 4 Sophiel, and stuff like Mannequin Cat is actually accessible using our Live Twin engine that is actually Cyburst. We're playing cards like Fury of Fire to just get an easy way into a link. We have Cynet Conflict and Insane Negate. We're playing cards like Recurrence, Foul, Coyote, Mad Hacker, which is just take control of a monster, by the way. Playing Falco, Fennec, playing the Code Talker link from Hand Effects. They're, of course, insane. We have Gachiri. We have Backdoor to get some direct damage in and a search. This is Salad as you've never seen it before, with none of the link monsters, without the field spell, but it is absolutely incredible fun and a very, very powerful deck. Now, next up, we have, of course, our other Metal Foes variant. This deck refuses to die no matter what we throw at it, and the way it's been built now is amazing and unbelievable. This is Unchained Metal Foes. We're making use of a few more Unchained cards than we did before, but there's a few very notable cards in here that look a bit odd. We're playing Vishuda because of the sheer number of non-effect Metal Foes, as well as Foucault's Cannon, which is just a spell trap removal, which can be very useful. But we're also playing Serene Psychic Witch, which is when it is destroyed, we can banish a Psychic from the deck, and then special a monster in the next standby phase. So you can just cheat out some of your Metal Foes. You can get Bismugear out. After a year of research, the general consensus has come to be that Metal Foes, either with our ban list or with Konami's, has 3 versions that give you success. FA Metal Foes or Floodgates, Draco Metal Foes for removal, and Unchained Metal Foes for everything. Unchained Metal Foes is likely to be the best version of the deck, with each Unchained being able to float into one another, as well as being searched by Prison and used as interruption with Escape of the Unchained. Those monsters feel like they were made for each other. Metal Foes has been hurt badly by the ban list, but by leaning more on the other decks that make up its engines, like Unchained, it's managed to maintain a powerful position in the metagame, despite taking up almost half of the ban list. It's honestly commendable. The deck's best plays are probably from the fact that removing their monsters will only help them, and most of our removal in the format is destruction. Same issue that comes up with the Magispectors. It's hard to hurt someone when they want to be hurt. It is staggering that Metal Foes is still alive, and I'm just hoping it doesn't dominate 2023 as well. But that is not the last of the Tier 1 decks. No, that is reserved for the reason that we had to hit Tri-Brigade Kit, and it is, of course, Tri-Melfi, the very essence of NR format in a deck. Grind like hell, advantage out the ass, and uses generic traps and beast monsters for removal, and closing out games with Tri-Brigade's powerful effects. The Melfis gain advantage and place level 2 monsters on the board and in the hand every turn, which is notable because of Mannequin Cat's versatility in the deck. We have Rugal, actually, one of the only archetypes with its extra deck actually having any cards, but we still have a bunch of other things to go into, like Hraesvelga and Darumadol, which is just a pop and can revive stuff from grave. We have, of course, Melfi Caddy, which we had to limit. We have the Xyz, like Grumble Logos, which is a negate. We have Ronin Raccoon, very fun card. We have access to some of the Nemesis level 2s. We have a Loyal Guanyun as a tri-type. We can play stuff like Standoff. We have Revolt, of all things. We have Wind Up Kitten. This, if you want to learn this format, if you want to get in, try this deck out. It is a lot of fun, and it just feels like you're playing a completely different game. So that's the tier list. This is, as of now, what the format is, and I imagine it's going to change a lot with upcoming sets. It's entirely possible that we get some Tearlament cards in NR. I can't imagine they make all of them SRs and URs. And Sprite as well. We're probably going to have a lot of trouble with Sprite coming in for Tri-Melfi with its sheer number of level 2 advantage it can use. Gamma Burst particularly I can see being very strong in the format. So expect an update in the next couple months. But in a minute we don't know what's coming out, so I guess we'll see. But again, I'll link the server in the description. You can come and hang out and play in our monthly or even weekly tournaments. And just have a good go at a format that is not the tier 0 in the TCG or Branded and Flu and Runic in regular Master Duel. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope to bring you more incredible NR content in the new year. I hope very much to bring you just great content in general in the new year. It has been incredible to grow to 4,000 subs. I'm just going to assume I hit 4,000 from this video. It'll look really bad if I don't and sit on like 3,999, but that'll be funny anyway. It is incredible to be able to say that I am a niche internet micro-celebrity to the point where I have been recognized in public for my YouTube channel, that people care enough to watch stuff that I put up on the internet and dumb ideas I have, and that other YouTubers are willing to hear out my dumb ideas and do content with me and hang out. Like, it is a crazy experience, and this is absolutely the best community I've been a part of, and I would not trade it for the world. So let's see how high we can get in the new year. Thanks for coming by and sticking with the channel. Follow me on Twitch and subscribe to the channel